Good morning, everybody. My name is Freddie Gipp, and I'd like to welcome you all to another edition of Red Talks podcast series featuring Melinda Williamson of Morning Light Kombucha. Melinda, thanks for taking the time out of your busy day to come on and speak about, your business, and what you've been doing during COVID-19. And so, before we begin and get into all the background stuff, could you take this time to kind of introduce yourself, your name, your tribe, where you come from, and then we'll get into everything after that.
All right. How Melinda Williamson Deshnakas, Mishkotani Bodwa Wadmi, the Bandogwis, Mishkoti Bodwa Wadmi Shkwangan. My name is Melinda Williamson. I am a member of the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation, and I live here on a reservation here in Marietta, Kansas. Thank you for having me. I am the owner of Morning Light Kombucha, and I'm excited to visit with you today.
Yeah, so can you kind of like take me back to before you started kombucha brewing and to your education and your credentials and what you learned? I understand that you went to high school to
Mhm.
get your associate's degree, then you went on to Oklahoma State, or not Oklahoma State, you landed a job at Oklahoma State, but you went to Kansas State.
Yes.
And your passion was, through reptiles and amphibians. And so how can you kind of like talk about how all of that got to where you are today?
Sure. Yeah, so I actually started off at KU studying design, and then I transferred to Haskell and really started I just kind of fell in love with biology, I guess there, and we did a lot of work out in the wetlands, and so I switched my major over to kind of natural resources focused, and I got my associates there, and I was studying reptile behavior, and went on. My journey is forever, but I went on to Fort Lewis, and I was studying wetland ecology there before I ended up getting pregnant with my daughter, and so I moved back and started at K-State, and that's where I ended up getting my bachelor's degree in natural history biology. So I continued my ecology studies there, and until I graduated. But once I was there, I started getting into more grassland ecology work. Mainly, it was just kind of a job at first, but it evolved into kind of a career, I guess, for me. Um, and I ended up getting a job at Oklahoma State University studying grassland ecology and kind of below ground systems, looking at mainly like mycorrhizal fungi interactions within the soil. So anyhow, it was grassland ecology focused. But yeah, the foundations of my career in ecology or as an ecologist all started at Haskell, and mainly from like ethnobotany classes that I was taking there. I worked with Chuck Haynes, and I don't know if he's there anymore, but he was instrumental in kind of my interest in ecology. And we did a lot of work out in the wetlands and studying medicinal plants and things like that. So that was that was kind of where I got started in that area. But once I ended up at Oklahoma State, it was a job I loved. I loved the people that I worked with. Um, but as my daughter was getting older, it just became more and more important to me to move back home and be closer to family and closer to our reservation, and making sure that she was growing up with the language. So I kind of made a difficult decision to kind of uproot my life and come back home to be closer to family, because that was just really important to me.
Yeah, definitely. And so after doing all that with your education from high school, and then to Kansas State, and then going on and for your career, and then coming back here, how did that process start with you starting your own business with Morning Light Kombucha? And so like how
Well,
did that like kind of come into the fold then?
yeah. So when I was in Oklahoma, I knew I was, I had this pull to go back home, and I was like, what am I going to do when I go back home? I could possibly teach at Haskell. But I don't know. I just sat down one day and was like, what's the next direction I want to take my life in? That would be the most feasible, where I could be living close to home. And anyhow, since I was a kid, I've wanted to have my own business. I started my own business when I was in fourth grade, like a little cleaning business. But it's just always been this constant theme through my life that I've wanted to own my own business. So I thought, well, maybe this might be the opportunity. So I continued to stay at OSU for another maybe 2 years. I decided to go back and get my master's degree because I didn't have that. So I kind of started putting all of these things in place to set myself up and to start my own business. So I just started saving money. I didn't know what I wanted to do as a business though. I kind of figured something in the food industry, only because that's something I knew. I just knew I wanted to do something that was impactful. And around the same time that I was going through all these, kind of going through all these steps of what I wanted to do, I had been diagnosed with an autoimmune illness. And I think that was prior to all of this. So it had me thinking about, my own health. And that was another reason I probably wanted to move back too, was just being sick and trying to take care of my daughter and stuff. So anyhow, I had started looking at food as a way to heal from my illness. And so we changed up our diet. We started introducing fermented foods into the diet, eating whole foods. And we saw these huge, improvements in our health. And with my autoimmune illness, I've been able to keep it under control for over 10 years now. And so I kind of was thinking whatever business I went into, I wanted it to be health focused. And kombucha was a part of one of the things I was thinking about, and as well as green smoothies. So that was like a big thing that my daughter and I introduced that really helped us. And so I just mainly what I did was I traveled so much. I got the opportunity to travel, and I was looking at like what's going on the East Coast and the West Coast in the food scene that's not happening like in the Midwest. And kombucha, there was like one or two kombucha companies. There was just one around in Kansas, but so I just thought maybe that would be a really good starting point. The startup for something like a kombucha company is really small. And so at least it was for me. And so that was kind of what I ended up settling on. And I had been making kombucha and sharing it with friends and family after I had moved back to Kansas. And that kind of sealed the deal. I just decided to go into selling kombucha.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the many endless explanations of entrepreneurship. And so, for those not familiar with kombucha, my girlfriend loves it. She loves your particular brand a lot,
Oh,
and and for me, it's good. I'll have a sip here and there, but it's really unfamiliar to me, and I can
yeah,
assume that it's probably unfamiliar to a lot of other people. So, with it being a very niche market, you saying that there was only one brewer in Kansas at the time when you were doing your market research, can you kind of explain, what is kombucha and the health
yeah,
benefits? You say, and I mentioned it's probiotic too, and
yeah.
so can you kind of talk about all that?
Yeah, sure. So kombucha is a fermented tea. We ferment anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks and sometimes over that. Basically, you start off with like a really sweet tea, and you let it ferment for that period of time. And during that time, most of the sugars consumed probiotics are produced during fermentation, healthy organic acids that help with like inflammation. The probiotics are really great for just really getting your gut back in balance. And we, you know, our gut is the source of so much. It helps feed our brain, and I mean, it helps. It can cause inflammation in the body. It can cause disease if it's out of balance. And so, you really want to make sure that your gut is in good shape. So the probiotics are helpful for that. There's different antioxidants and polyphenols that are produced and available during, or you know, in the brew. And so it's just a really great health drink. And I think that was not just kombucha, but just fermented foods in general are really what helped me kind of keep my autoimmune illness under control. And it's just because I was able to start focusing on my gut health. And that kind of helped balance out my inflammation that was going on in my body. And um, it's it's just really good. It's got the B vitamins help with energy. So there's just, and it just can make you feel good. It's low in sugar. It's fizzy. So we have people who kind of use it as a alternative to soda. So it's kind of in a nutshell, kombucha.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, you mentioned, or I guess what I looked at was you were the 2019 Minority Business of the Year in Kansas for the manufacturing side of it.
Yeah.
And you started your business in, what was it, 2016?
Mm-hmm.
So 3 years from that, getting that award, can you kind of talk about the beginning stages of being an entrepreneur, starting your business? I understand it's tough. Uh,
Yeah.
it's tough in general when, you know, when you identify what you want to do, but for your instance, you were driven by you wanting to be healthy, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
passion to kind of live a better life because your life depended on it essentially. And
Yeah.
so a lot of that, you know, that passion driven focus, you know, allows you to do great things. And so can you kind of talk about those 3 years before you got that award and what it was like starting out?
Yeah, I guess I should even go back before I had even decided to focus on kombucha. I kind of um, determined like the foundations of my business, and it was one of the things was sustainability and making sure that whatever I went into, I tried to keep my environmental impact low. Um, so what we do now is we compost all of our waste, our food waste that we have. We use compostable products like our. Um, I just actually got gloves, like the disposable gloves that are compostable. So we have to use gloves for everything.
Yeah.
And we were using gloves before, but now we use gloves so much more than we were before. And so anyhow, we try to use compostable products. We use low energy equipment. So that was one of the things that's actually been pretty easy to stick with when it came to starting the business. Another part is giving back. So we give a percentage back to Native communities. We've been doing that since the very beginning. And so we support different nonprofits. Native Women Lead. We just gave John Hopkins for some of the work that they're doing down in with the Navajos in COVID. Sorry, let me get comfortable. And so anyhow, that was another part of it. But so those were kind of like the easy parts of it, of my business, trying to figure out what was the most important in trying to stick with those values. But another part of it was working with local and supporting their local farming economy. So we work directly with farmers to source our ingredients locally. So in the beginning, I guess with our going into just starting the business, making those connections and making sure that we were sticking with the values um, that we wanted to make sure that was our focus, I guess, was was actually a little bit easier than I thought, but um, gosh, sorry, I'm kind of, I think I just went like too far
It's
out
fine.
of my, yeah. Okay. So anyways, starting over. Okay. Starting the business. It was definitely difficult. For the most part, it's been myself. Um, I've had the support of my family and friends. They come in and they uh, help with at the farmers market. The kids help clean kegs and keep the kitchen clean. Um, but when I first started, I had to actually build from scratch a commercial kitchen in my home, in my basement. And that was pretty, it was really fun, but it was definitely crazy because I had to build it in the basement. So you can imagine, I mean, I had to haul tons of, 5-gallon buckets and, or, 5-gallon bottles of water to the basement, putting them in these huge fermenters, trying to haul out any waste from downstairs and haul all the kegs upstairs. And so that was just starting off. There were definitely challenges to being a small business, and making the sacrifices because I couldn't afford like to rent out a kitchen. So luckily we had an unfinished basement. I was able to get a friend to help me build a licensed commercial kitchen. So it's definitely, that was pretty interesting first part of my business. But at some point, I actually sold my house like a year later, 2 years later, and ended up renting space just down the street from where I was. And that space has allowed us to grow and eventually, hopefully, grow out of it into even bigger space. But being the main, the only employee of the business, I do the brewing and I mean, I was doing the brewing and the record keeping and, making all the arrangements with buyers and accounts and things like that. So, those are, it keeps you really busy. And I worked full time. After about a year and a half, I went down to part time and started working for our language department. And that's where I'm at now. So I still work part time. And as the business is just growing, I finally was able to hire my sister. And so she is kind of now in charge of the kitchen. So she keeps the kids' schedules. Because our kids all do the cleaning for us, and so that's taken a lot off of my plate now, and because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, to run a business, especially a small one. And I know that I've had opportunities to grow even larger, but I love my job. I love the work that we do in the language department, and it's really difficult to try to walk away from something like that. So right now, I just try to find a balance between growing the business, but what I really want to do is be able to provide job opportunities in our community. So that's kind of my ultimate plan, is hopefully I can continue to work for the language department and hire people to help out from our community to grow the business in that way. So that's kind of the future plans of growth wise. But um, I guess the way that the business is structured, like I told you, sustainability has been really important from the very beginning. So the way that you purchase our product is we sell it by the keg wholesale for dispensing on tap. So our accounts either rent or they purchase their own kegerator and they purchase bottles from us. And customers can come in, they can purchase a bottle, they fill it up themselves, and then they bring it back and refill it whenever they want. And that's how we do it at the farmers market and at different events and things like that. And it's it's been really good. I mean, that's actually helped so much for being the sole employee, because all I have to do is keg. and sell kegs, and then set up at the market and fill bottles. But I never was too interested in prepackaged bottling, mainly because here on our reservation, we don't do any glass bottle recycling. Even in the surrounding community, which is small towns, they don't do glass recycling. And I just wasn't interested in having a prepackaged glass bottle that was going to end up in the waste. Um, but moving forward, um, we actually have decided. So I'll just back up for a second. We are trademarked through American Indian Foods. So we're a trademarked American Indian food producer, and that's through the Intertribal Agricultural Council. And that program has allowed us to really get out into like a bigger market and kind of see the opportunities available to us as a small business, as small producers. And we went to the Restaurant Association show in Chicago last year, and we had, it was just incredible. We had so many people coming up, so many businesses wanting our kombucha, and but with the way that we have our business model where we only sell by the keg, it's hard to think about how are we going to get 5 kegs here, 5 kegs here, 2 kegs here, because a lot of businesses, some of them have plenty of storage space, but some of them don't. So anyhow, it was just kind of like, maybe we need to start thinking about prepackaging. It would make it a lot easier to ship. We have decided, and with the COVID money, thank goodness, like we were able to get a loan, a low interest rate loan. And so we'll be launching our canned kombucha line this year, hopefully in the next couple of months. And that will allow us to be able to ship directly to consumers. We have a lot of people across the US that we get requests for shipping, but it's so expensive to ship a glass bottle.
Yeah.
So it'll be a lot less expensive to ship canned kombucha. So it's really exciting. And then we can partner with tribes. And at the Chicago show, I was so surprised by how, I shouldn't have been, but that's not my scene. I don't like the restaurant scene, but there were so many tribes and tribal enterprises and casinos that were interested in having our product there in their communities. And so this will allow us to make those connections and hopefully get our product into more Native communities. So that's kind of an exciting new development in the business that we're excited to launch.
Yeah, that's exciting. So you mentioned how you said you had opportunities for growth, but you wanted to focus on the language revitalization component of your job. And
Mhm.
so what has been the turning point for Morning Light Kombucha in these 3 years that you've started and received that award? You're on tap now at Hy-Vee and other places, which is really remarkable. And so
Mhm.
like what has been like the defining factor? Every entrepreneur has that moment. And so from your perspective, if it has, Kim, there's minor moments, there's major moments, and then there's those colossal moments. But like for the 3 years, from your perspective, what has been the most impactful turning point in your career?
Honestly, I would say this past year has been a big wake up call. I think one of the big things was the Chicago show, and getting more involved with American Indian foods, and seeing the opportunities available to us. If you're not familiar with the program, they connect producers, or they give opportunities to Native American producers um, to get their product uh, exporting, like to get it exported overseas. So that's been like a big part of it. They are doing more domestic shows, and that's why we chose to do the Chicago one. But I think getting involved with them and seeing the opportunities that are out there that are just really unique to us as American Indian producers. It was just like, wow, I'm just living in Kansas, and my thing has just been, I want to provide a healthy drink to, the communities around here. Um, yeah, I would love to be in other Native communities, but like that doesn't seem feasible for me. But when I got part of this, when I got more immersed in this program, I saw the opportunities out there that I just didn't know about. And so I mean, we had Disney from Europe, Disney Europe or something, and they were like, "We would love your product in Disney." And I'm like, "What? This is insane." And it was just it was just incredible. So that was probably a huge eye opener for us, knowing that we could be bigger than we ever thought. Now, that's not to say that that's my goal. It never has been my goal to be huge and be everywhere. I don't have, that's just not me. you know. I think it's more important, like where my product goes and who it reaches and who it's able to impact is important. And so I would say that was a defining moment where it's made me think, okay, I need to change things up. I need to start pushing forward a little bit more. I need to ask for help, because there is, the business has been growing, especially over the past year. It's just really, really kind of exploded. And then with the COVID, we had to completely change our business model. We no longer do farmers markets, because we do those exchanges with people bringing back, used bottles. Um, we now do like a bottle exchange where they leave their bottles on their doorstep. We do a delivery service. So you can place an order and you leave your dirty bottle outside. We'll switch it out with a new bottle. We sanitize the bottle before it gets into the car, and we have a little box that all the dirties go in. And we go back and clean them and reuse them, which is amazing because we had never done that before. Even though, that was just, even though it's something that would have been really cool from the beginning, but I just was like, washing bottles, no, I don't have time for that. But we do have time for that, and it works really, really well, and it gives us an opportunity um, to just connect on an even better level and start really great conversations about you know uh, environmentally friendly practices and things in our community. So anyhow, I love that part of it. Another thing we do is curbside pickup. And I think now that we're offering deliveries, I mean, our sales have just spiked so much over the past, well, since COVID, like since we've had to implement the different practices. And I realized that being at the farmers market, yeah, we were reaching people who were like-minded. Um, but there's a lot of other people that like kombucha or want kombucha, but they don't go to farmers markets, and they just buy what's on the shelf. And so I think we've been able to reach so many more people by offering delivery services, and then the word of mouth. And I've gotten customers. I have several neighbors that are right beside each other because they saw me delivering to one, and they're like, "Hey, what is that?" And then I give them my card, and they become customers. So that's been really exciting, part of that too. So I guess, yeah, to answer your question, I, just being with American Indian Foods and also those shows have been the aha moment. Like, wow, this, we can really grow, and the opportunities are there for growth, and the support. I think that's more than anything is just knowing that we have that support, because as a business owner, I'm a very cautious, I'm not just like jump in kind of person. I'm a very cautious business owner. I'm a single mom. I can't just make irrational decisions and hope that things are going to work out. Like, I have to support myself and my daughter. And so it's knowing that I have that kind of support makes me more confident in moving forward and growing a little bit bigger. So that's that's pretty that's my defining moment. I Thanks for asking, because I never really thought about it like that, but it it's been a good year.
Yeah, definitely. And so you have been, from what you've told me just in this conversation, you've really adapted well during COVID-19. And some of those precautions of you having an autoimmune um, situation, there are those preventative aspects for you for the contactless, the curbside pickup. And so, from your perspective in your market, how is your market, from your understanding, kind of adjusted to this COVID-19 pandemic?
I think I have seen a lot more kombucha companies doing home deliveries that weren't doing them before. I have seen a lot go back into the farmers markets. Um, I think if I had a prepackaged bottle, a prepackaged, I mean, I would be okay with going back to the farmers market, but with the exchanges that we do, I mean, the curbside pickup that we have protocol where I go out, they put their bottles in the trunk, so there's no contact. We get their bottles out of the trunk, sanitize them, fill them, re-sanitize them, take them out, and then sanitize the station again. So it's just extra precautions. But if I'm at the market, I don't have time to do that when I have 50 people standing in line, waiting for kombucha, and I'm wearing a mask in 150-degree heat. It's like it's not worth it to me, to have to do that and then risk cross contamination, and risk, getting sick myself or getting someone else sick. So, um, anyhow, so that's, for me, it's out of the question. But I think that a lot of kombucha companies have been really adapting very, very well during COVID. There's a lot of kombucha companies. I'm not able to follow all of them, but I really haven't seen very many uh, like closings. I have seen a couple kombucha companies that have had to close down permanently. Um, but uh, other than that, I think the kombucha industry is doing really well and adapting really, really well to it. And I think because of the probiotics, because of the immune boosting properties of kombucha, people are kind of like flocking to it too, because they want to stay as healthy and strong and keep their immune system good through, you know, through all of this too. So it's been pretty good, luckily.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed a lot of businesses when it first hit in March kind of freeze up because they didn't know really what to do. I know there was a catering business here in Lawrence that made a post on Facebook and they were just terrified because they while they were catering, they also had a venue, and a lot of like they saw all of like the reservations just skyrocket down to zero basically because nobody wanted to do anything anymore because there was just that fear of the unknown. But then they adjusted and now they do delivery and now they're having safe, meetings and stuff too. But that was one thing that really sparked an interest, being like, man, like what are businesses doing, you know what I mean, now? Because it's either you're going to prosper or falter in this time, and that kind of goes all across the board for different things, from the way tribal governments are ran to small businesses. And so we're seeing that kind of play and unfold today. And so I think that's very, very interesting and unique. And so before we wrap this up, I have a couple more questions. Um, could you give some insight to maybe others, Native Americans, especially probably Native American women who are interested in maybe starting a business or an endeavor or venture, you know, something that they think maybe it's a beading company or something like within textiles? And what are some of the advice that you have for those people who are wanting to kind of get into this competitive arena?
Um, let's see. One of the things I would probably say, number one is to reach out to your local, like, business, like small business administration offices for help. There are free classes in a lot of cities. Like I use the Washburn Small Business Association. They, am I saying that right? Yeah. Anyhow, I reached out to them because I don't have a background in business, you know? And so I just went over and started seeing what workshops I could take to learn more about bookkeeping and business plans. And that was helpful because you make those connections and there's people that you can lean on like later and through the whole business. I mean, from the very beginning, I've been able to contact them and say, hey, do you know someone who can help me with distribution? Is there someone that you could partner me up as a mentor? Um, so that would be one thing. Another thing is definitely save your money. Make sure that you financially can take on the responsibilities of owning a business. Um, Something else would be recognizing your strengths and your weaknesses and getting help. Like one of the weaknesses I had was because don't get me wrong, I'm good with finances, but when it comes to like all the bookkeeping and QuickBooks, like I had no clue what the heck I was doing. And so, having a little money set aside to get trained, with a bookkeeper or hire a bookkeeper, um, I feel really like thankful that I'm in a small town because I can reach out to bookkeepers in small towns and you can get a better rate than a bigger city. You can also do trades. And I think in the beginning I was trading kombucha. I trade kombucha for so much stuff. It's like, I'll bring you kombucha every week for, that's how my website designer, I was paying him in kombucha, and he did a really good job. Eventually I'm like, just start, I'll pay you.
Just
But he
via
wasn't that,
bartering.
yeah, just tons of bartering. But in asking for help, I think me personally, like I said, I'm a single mom and I don't know if it's because of that. And I was raised by a single mom, but I just feel like I can do anything and I can do it on my own, and so I don't really, I have a harder time asking for help. Um, and I always have help, I always have friends, I have family that are there to help me, but sometimes I don't ask. And we definitely, I definitely need to, I'm utilizing that a lot more than I used to. And so I think those would be my biggest things, just reaching out, trying to do a business plan if you can, because having a business plan, I didn't need it a lot in the beginning, but I feel like I need it a lot now. Like even, I've never really had to submit it to anybody, but just, I don't know. I feel like it's being talked about. I've had to send it off to a few people before, but it just helps you like have a timeline and be able to go and look back and see like how you're developing and making changes to the business. And it helps you kind of have like a little template for the structure of your business. And I think it's good to look at all of the things that you have to answer in a business plan, and identify things. Something else is, there's tons of, and that's one of the things that I want to utilize, is interns or finding someone to help out, especially if you're in like a college town, reaching out for people who might want to intern and learn a little bit about your business, and they can help you out. And if you don't have the money to pay them, you can figure out a way to compensate them in some way. But anyhow, so I could go on and on, but that's the beginning. That's my advice for now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all great points you brought up. And so, you deliver. Can you kind of talk about that process? Where do you deliver to? What's your radius? You don't go to Lawrence, do you? That's a little too far out.
Yeah, so originally when I would deliver to Manhattan, Lawrence, and Topeka. And Lawrence is about an hour away from my house, and Manhattan is about an hour and a half away from my house. Um, and at that time we were just working remotely within the language department, and so I was able to still get away and do some of that stuff. But I realized that I had businesses in Lawrence and Manhattan that they had to shut their doors. One was a yoga studio, the other one was a plant shop, and they needed to make money. And so I approached them and just said, listen, I'll give you kombucha. Um, I'll give you 90 days or over to pay me back for the kombucha. And so I extended their terms for payment, and basically was like, why don't you do deliveries, since your doors are shut, and it'll be a way for you to make some money, and they can charge what they charge, whatever normal bottle exchange costs. And so we went over ways to clean bottles and, do all of that stuff. And they took over, the Lawrence business took over the Lawrence deliveries. The Manhattan business took over the Manhattan deliveries. And then that allowed me to keep moving product, but not have to actually go out there and deliver myself, which helped all of us all the way around. And so I won't say like it kept their business afloat or anything, but it definitely helped quite a bit with them bringing in some revenue and not having to pay anything right away. So that's kind of how but yeah, so Topeka's where I deliver to right now. And it's, yeah, that's the only place I go. And well, and then our community, just anywhere around between, the Mayetta Holton area, we deliver here too.
Yeah. So as we wrap this up, uh, Melinda from Morning Light Kombucha, I really appreciate you coming on this morning and talking about your journey and what you've been going through with COVID and how you've been prospering after that. Do you have any last things you want to kind of say?
No, just, well, yeah, check out my website. It's morninglightkombucha.com. We are also on Facebook and Instagram under Morning Light Kombucha. And just keep an eye out for our new canned kombucha line that's coming out hopefully by the end of the summer. We'll have it launched, and you'll be able to actually purchase uh, canned kombucha for delivery straight to your home. And so we'll be shipping and introducing like some subscriptions where it'll automatically be delivered monthly or every other week. And so we're pretty excited about that. So keep an eye out.
Yeah, definitely. And so we'll post all the information to this video when we launch it, probably in a couple of days. And so for me to you, really appreciate the work you're doing. Really great things, really breaking barriers as a Native American entrepreneur. And like I said before, I'd like to thank you once again for taking time and speaking about your experience with Morning Light Kombucha. And other than that, that's all I have to say. And have a great rest of your day and a great Independence weekend. And hopefully I'll see you maybe at an event somewhere down the road. So
That'd be great. Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
yeah, no problem. Take care.
Okay, bye.